So I just want to say how excited I am to be here, and then I'm happy to answer any questions. Just spent the last couple hours with Greg and his management team. I've known Greg for a long time. Of course, the Miller family is the second longest tenured ownership group in the league, and we see it in the work that they're doing here with the franchise. I mean, it's a first-class team in every possible way. The reports I got today in terms of the local community interest, the partnerships that they have with local businesses. The team is looking terrific. Dennis Lindsay's doing a fantastic job. They asked me why I'm here. I said I haven't been to Salt Lake City yet since I became commissioner, but it's just a coincidence that Quinn Snyder went to Duke and I did, and I'm here for his first game. I just want to say that for the record. But actually, things really are looking great for this franchise. And it's a wonderful time for the league. As you all know, we recently concluded 2 new television extensions with our longtime partners, Disney Company and Time Warner, and all the teams will be a beneficiary of that. And I think it's especially important for so-called small markets. And while I still use that label because others do, what we're seeing in the league is those distinctions are becoming much less important. I think it's because of a number of factors. One is that the increased amount of national and international revenue that's divided equally among the teams, with a dollop of revenue sharing added to that, enables every team to compete. We have an increasingly global market for the NBA, and so the relative differences in the sizes of the markets in the United States become much less relevant when you look at this business on a global basis and you realize that less than 5% of the global population is in the United States, and you see how much our business is growing in Asia, in Europe, in Latin America, and so we're very much a global business. I'd say social media is transforming this business in that you have followers of every organization, regardless of the size of the market in the United States. You have a huge followings on a global basis of particular players, of particular teams, and then mobile technology. We're all going mobile. So what I'm seeing, I was traveling in Europe and Asia for the preseason, and increasingly, even in when fans have to follow teams in different time zones, they're doing it on their smartphones or on tablets rather than on television. It makes it that much more easy to follow their favorite team. So all of those factors are combining to make market size much less important in the United States in terms of a 30-team league. And we're seeing the results on the floor. I was in San Antonio last night. I had the honor, first time as commissioner, of giving out the rings to the San Antonio Spurs, and I see a lot of similarity, frankly, between this organization and the San Antonio Spurs. Clearly, they've developed some of their basketball side down in San Antonio. But it's a winning formula, and it has to do with a global team like they have here. It has to do with sound management. It has to do with strong ownership and a clear vision. And I think it's why we're seeing success, not just in San Antonio, but we see it in Oklahoma City. We see it in Indianapolis. And that's what I want to run, is a 30-team league where every team, in every market has the opportunity to run a sound, financially stable business and compete for championships. And that, again, is what we're seeing here. It's evolved a little bit, and I would say in part because of the robust conversation we had before the Board of Governors last week. As you know, a majority of teams were in favor of lottery reform. 17 teams voted in favor of the particular proposal, but it requires a 3/4 vote, so it didn't pass. But there was a unanimous agreement in the room that we needed to continue looking at it. It's a difficult issue, and I've been involved with the league for a long time, and we've tinkered with it many times over the years. My greatest concern is not that the current system isn't fair, but there's a perception in some markets that you need to be really bad in order to get good. I'm not sure if the data supports that, but it concerns me when general managers and teams feel pressure to be bad and think that that's the quickest way to becoming good. I think there are no shortcuts to developing championship teams in the league. But the reason why we had that proposal in front of the owners is largely to address that perception. But there was a concern in the room that there may be some unintended consequences from the proposal that was on the table, and we said, fine, we'll take it back to the competition committee and continue looking at it. I'm not sure how many franchises feel that way. My sense is that franchises do what's smart, and they're ultimately going to do what's in the best interest of their organization, and that is building a winning culture and building a first-class operation. My real concern is that it creates doubters in the community. It was really more the chatter out there, of people saying that by going about it the old-fashioned way, that wasn't the right way to build a team. So I'm not, it's something we monitor. There's genuine rebuilding necessary in this league, and so I'm not against clubs appropriately rebuilding, and that's what I think is happening now in some franchises. I was more concerned of sort of where it could next be taken to based on some of what I pick up when I travel around the league, and that's why we were addressing it. But incidentally, the lottery reform, it wasn't a wholesale change anyway. It was still a lottery. It's still, the challenge is you still want the draft to stock those teams with the best picks who have the worst record. So it's always finding that right balance. I think it has changed significantly with the appointment of Michelle Roberts. As I've said previously, we're just getting to know each other. We've had a few meetings so far. We've had several phone conversations, and I think a strong union is in the interest of the league. Having a strong partner on the other side of the table, having a partner that creates an informed players association, a union that has strong views about how to build this league with us is all very positive. There's no specific timeline yet to sitting down and discussing some of the issues that we had parked at the end of the last collective bargaining cycle, but I know Michelle Roberts is working to get up to speed as quickly as possible. She's in the process of hiring some new executives at the union. I saw there was an announcement today of some new people who are joining her. So I think we're probably still some number of weeks away from sitting down and have any sort of formal discussions about some of the so-called B-list issues. No imminent plans for expansion now, and so it's not something I'm focused on. I can imagine, I definitely can imagine a time where we would seriously consider expanding overseas, especially to Europe. I don't think it's realistic unless there's some new aircraft on the horizon that I'm not familiar with that will expand to Asia, having been someone who makes that trip fairly often myself. But I think in Europe it's doable when you think about the travel time from East Coast to West Coast and the flight times from East Coast to Europe. I think it's doable. Clearly the NFL is very focused on the possibility of putting a franchise in London. So it's something we're continuing to look at. Again, it's not imminent. It requires an arena infrastructure in Europe that's not quite there yet. It is in some cities. And I think if we were to do it, probably we'd approach it a little differently than the NFL. I think it would, in a sport like ours where we play as often as we do, we'd probably need to do it with a division as opposed to a one-off team in Europe. The initial report back was, you're not planning to change the number of minutes in the game this year, are you? And we said, no, not at all. That was not even a consideration. We did it more to focus everyone in the league on the issue of pace and length of game. There's a lot of attention in baseball about length of game, not so much so in our game, but it's something we are focused on. We have a 2.5-hour television window. We think that's the right length of the game. It tends to creep longer sometimes. Part of it is our fault because of the commercial timeouts we have. Part of it may be a little bit of the coach's fault because of some of the timeouts they call. And so I think the 44-minute game served its purpose, which was focusing the community's attention on length of game and pace. And it's something we're going to continue looking at. I think it's highly unlikely we're going to change the number of minutes in the game, but we will be looking at other commercial formats and we will be looking at other timeout formats. Good question. So the new money doesn't come in until the 16-17 season, but having said that, we'd like to know as early as possible if we are going to make a change so teams can plan accordingly. It's something that does require the agreement of the union in order to create a so-called smoothing effect of the new money. And so I have discussed it with Michelle Roberts. While we're not at the point of looking for agreement with a specific proposal, we have presented a concept to them in terms of how smoothing would work. And it's the league's position that it will lead to a more equitable distribution of the money if we smooth in rather than having one enormous windfall for the particular class of free agents that year. Just to be clear, the players in totality will still get 51% of total BRI in 16-17. It's just a question of how it's distributed among the players and where the level of the cap is set. The most enjoyable part of my job is coming to games, traveling around the league. I'm really, it's, as I said, my first trip to Salt Lake City since I was commissioner. It's fun getting together with the team organizations, learning new things from them, getting direct feedback from the teams on new ideas that we should be implementing at the league office, and just interacting generally with fans. I mean, it's fun sitting in the arena, and markets really do differ, in terms of how they react to their teams and to the game presentation and how they choose to entertain their fans, different styles of basketball around the league. So that's my favorite part of the job, and that aspect of it I've been doing, is now going almost into my 23rd year at the league.